Hello, class. My name is Joey. Today I'm going to be talking about fast fashion and why it's harmful to both people and the environment. Specifically, I'm going to be arguing that it should be regulated due to the harm it causes to the environment, uh, workers, and society, and how it negatively affects society. Sorry about that. Statistic provided by the Environmental Protection Agency states that over 92 million tons of textile waste is produced every year. Most of it ends up in landfills just sitting for decades, waiting to decompose. Even more concerning, a lot of the time the clothing is only worn a few times before being thrown out. Imagine this. Imagine you go and you buy a new shirt. You might wear it once, maybe a few times. Now imagine the same process repeated thousands of times across the following days. The clothing just doesn't disappear. It ends up in landfills, adding even more to the long-term damage. Today, I'm going to be talking about what fast fashion is and how it became so prevalent, how it affects the environment, and how it affects workers and society. Fast fashion is the business model where companies quickly and cheaply roll out clothing to meet continuing trends. Companies often roll out the most newest styles so consumers can get hold of them while they're still new. According to an academic journal provided by Chen and others, published 2021, companies often rely on cheap labor to keep costs low. Con- Online shopping as well as social media play a pivotal role as well, making it popular, but also making it easier for consumers to keep on buying. For example, companies like Shein, Zara, H&M, they release thousands of new items every week, and consumers often feel pressure to keep up with these trends. Consumers will keep on buying, treating clothing as disposable as opposed to something that is truly valuable. But now that we know what fast fashion is, let's talk about how it affects the environment. Fast fashion has serious environmental consequences when it comes to waste, pollution, and water usage. Fast fashion requires large amounts of water to function, and this puts a strain on the global water resource. According to an environmental report provided by the United Nations published in 2025, the dyeing process releases toxic chemicals into water systems, contaminating water supplies near factories. Communities rely on this water for drinking, fishing, cooking, cleaning. This hurts their way of life, but also damages their health. Another issue is textile waste. Every year, 90 million tons is produced, and most of it ends up in landfills. Synthetic fibers such as nylon, polyester are used, and these do not break down easily. They just end up sitting, adding even more to the long term environmental damage. Climate change is another issue. Global transportation as well as production increases global carbon emissions, and any unsold clothing is burnt, releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. Because of this, people keep on buying more than they need, creating waste and harming the environment even further. But the damage doesn't stop with the environment, it affects people as well. Fast fashion has serious consequences when it comes to workers and society. According to Chen and others, an article he published in 2021, workers are forced to work long hours in unsafe conditions for very little pay. Imagine working 12-hour shifts every day, barely making enough to survive, just so someone on the other side of the world can buy cheap clothing that they might only wear once. This system prioritizes profit over worker well being. Global economic equality is another issue in fast fashion. Rich countries benefit from cheap clothing, while workers in poor countries are not fairly compensated. Most of the profit goes to large corporations instead to the people who actually produce the clothing. Finally, fast fashion normalizes harmful societal views. It encourages overconsumption and normalizes people to not value what they had. This disconnects consumers from how their clothes is made, where it's made, and overall, the impact their choices have. Because of these issues, there have been attempts to regulate the fashion industry. For example, legislation proposed in New York, the Fashion Sustainability and Social Accountability Act, which proposes for companies to be held responsible for their actions. This includes supply chains, how they damage the environment, pollution, how they affect workers, and many, many more. This shows that change is possible, but it also highlights how serious the problem has become. Because without regulation, companies are not being held responsible. After looking at all these points, it's clear that fast fashion is more than just clothing. It's about the economy, people around the world, and workers. To the skeptics who argue in favor of fast fashion for its affordability, the true cost comes in the environment and worker rights. Change is possible through consumers taking small steps like choosing sustainable brands, making more conscious choices of their purchases, but also not buying more than they need. Finally, if we want true change, we need to support legislation such as the Fashion Sustainability Social Accountability Act because fast fashion may seem convenient, but it's a problem we can no longer ignore. All right. I think that's it.
Did you stop recording?